Hey, what is up guys, MKBHD here, and every single year there are two main phones that really help us to shape our vision of the future of smartphones, that really help us out, and that is the iPhone, the new iPhone every year it comes out, and the Nexus. So there's going to be a future video about the new iPhone, so stay tuned for that if you want to see that, but for this video, we're going to talk about the new Nexus, the Android flagship coming later this year. So first of all, Android 7.0 Nougat is already out there. I've been running the beta on my Nexus 6P for a while, and there's also now the new Nexus launcher that you can install on any phone if you want. That's been out there for a little while too. I've been using it and I'm pretty much used to it. So the launcher still has an app drawer, but it's no longer an app button. You swipe it up from the bottom row of apps, and then you have a search bar for all your apps at the top and a vertically scrolling list. So that's sort of a new swipe gesture there. It also has a new folder design, which I didn't like at first, but it's minor, so I've already gotten used to it. And then it shrunk the Google search bar that's usually permanently at the top to just a permanent letter G up in the top left-hand corner. And then you can see it puts the date on the top right-hand corner. Though I wish I could click the date, like just to get to the calendar, but maybe that's coming soon. There's also a new wallpaper picker, which looks pretty sweet. And now there's also, these features are starting to trickle down into third-party launchers, so like Go Launcher or Nova Launcher. If you're using those, then you can sort of try one or two of these features at a time instead of going with the whole Nexus launcher experience right away. I'll leave the APK that I use to install the Nexus launcher on my phone right below that like button if you want to try the whole thing. But again, if you don't, then you can just grab like Nova Launcher and try a couple features. We're also expecting a few new features to get added to the final version of Android 7.0 before it gets launched with the new Nexuses at the end of the year. One of these being, like right now when you long press the home button, you get to Google Now on tap. The new Nexus is expected to launch with a fancy new animation where if you long press that, you'll launch into a more full-fledged Google Assistant. So that's the software side, and that's exciting and everything, but what I'm most excited about is the new hardware, the new Nexus phones launching this year. And I did say Nexus phones because we're expecting two new Nexuses again. Now, we got last year Nexus 6P from Huawei and Nexus 5X from LG, a really high-end Nexus phone, and then this sort of a mid-range, lower-price phone. We're expecting to see the same sort of strategy again this year, two new Nexus phones, one high-end, one mid-range, both built by HTC. So this is the Android Police mock-up of what the next Nexus will look like. Both of them actually. One will be smaller, one will be larger, but they'll both have this same design. But yeah, based off of all the information and leaks that they've gotten, this is the representative model of what it should look like. So right off the bat, that dual tone design is a little bit head turning, obviously, so it's a mostly metal body all the way around, but then a really big glass window to allow for things like NFC and GPS and maybe wireless charging if it's tall enough, not sure, we'll have to see. But also I have a feeling it's gonna look a lot better in real life than it does in these mock-up renders. I mean, if you remember the Nexus 6P, when we first got the renders and the leaks of seeing this phone for the first time, it looked like the hump on the back was gonna be huge and ugly, and people hated it before it even came out. But then we got the phone in real life, and it's more of this slender glass window. Same idea here. But the other things you'll notice are there's no camera bump, nice, and there are also no front-facing speakers, sadly. It's a dying breed. But overall, it's a pretty simple looking phone, no groundbreaking, crazy looking features or anything like that. And then the specs. So here's the specs of the smaller Nexus, all right? Quad-core chip, 4 gigabytes of RAM. Looks pretty good. 5-inch 1080p AMOLED display. So AMOLED, again, nice to see in the smaller phone. And a 2,770 milliamp hour battery. 32 gigs of storage. I hope that's the base model, hopefully no 16 gig version. A 12 megapixel camera on the back, an 8 megapixel camera on the front, and a fingerprint reader, USB Type-C port, downward-facing speaker, and a headphone jack up top. And then the larger, higher-end Nexus will be, again, quad-core Qualcomm chip, 4 gigabytes of RAM, not 6, but that's fine. 5.5-inch Quad HD AMOLED display, same as Nexus 6P, nice. A 3,450 milliamp hour battery, again, good to see. 32 or 128 gigabytes of storage, okay. And another 12 megapixel camera on the back, 8 megapixel camera on the front, fingerprint reader, USB Type-C port, downward-facing speaker, and the headphone jack up top. Side note, I do think it's ridiculous that we have to mention a headphone jack as a feature in a phone. That's the second phone this year that's had to do that.
Do you want to know what else it comes with? An audio jack. I'm just saying.
We also have this EvLeaks tweet that shows that Verizon may carry these Nexuses for the first time in a long time. Last time Verizon carried a Nexus was like actually one of my favorite phones ever, the Galaxy Nexus. And they had their weird ways with that phone, and they screwed it up in their own little ways. But also Verizon likes to rebrand a lot of their phones. They make Droid editions out of everything. So he put Nexus in quotes as if they may rename it and rebrand it. Either way, I'm still gonna buy the unlocked version. So overall, all this info is really good to have. What it's really telling me is that these two phones are probably going to be very similar to each other. Both have the same design. They'll both be made by the same manufacturer. That didn't happen last year, so HTC will make both. And they may actually have the same exact camera modules again, which did happen last year, and that was pretty good for the mid-range phone to have a high-end camera. But I think we're gonna have to wait and see for that. And also I feel like we're gonna see a lot more emphasis on the Google Assistant part of it at the announcement. So the long press on the home button with the fancy animation to get to a little bit more than Google Now on tap. That's gonna be a big focus in my head anyway. We'll have to wait and see. I gotta give a shout out to Android Police because 99.5% of the new info we have on these Nexuses is because of their digging and their hard work. So shout out to that. I'll link what they do below. And they also have more smaller stuff like the camera app is going to get manual exposure back. And the fingerprint reader will have a swipe down gesture to bring down your notification shade in the new version of Android. Stuff like that. So there you have it. Let the Nexus hype begin. I'm pretty excited. Let me know which of the phones you're more excited for. A lot of people were really psyched about the Nexus 5X last year. I'm personally a big phone type of guy, so I'm excited for the higher end phone. But most of this is just we shall see. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.